Hey everyone, we're going to do a quick live stream. We're going to try and grab a quick over under international basketball games. See if we can win one today live on this stream to show you guys exactly what it is we're doing. We are Signals Sports Investment Gaming Network and Live Signals. This is how you can reach us by email or follow us on Twitter or send us a message. Comment on our videos or on our content as you wish. We are going to briefly look at our disclaimer. Please pause the video to read our disclaimer and then start it up again. You won't miss anything. I'll read the third paragraph. We are neither licensed nor authorized to provide any investing, trading, wagering, and/or betting advice whatsoever. All of the information contained within this broadcast is provided for entertainment purposes only. By subscribing to any of our alerts, notices, and/or signals, you confirm that you understand that it is possible to lose some or all of your money when investing in any sports markets, and you further acknowledge that you cannot hold Signals liable or responsible for any such losses. So that's it. That's the disclaimer. Again, this is who we are. I share the screen and I share a sports book I've been using since I've been doing these screens, Bet365, which I find to be a very useful platform to work from. I also have another computer that's right beside the one that I'm sharing, from which I run all of these international basketball games. Our algorithm is running, the games are running. I'm doing a bunch of calculations alongside the algorithm, which is running by itself. And I also have my mobile device because I place all of my trades for our corporate account through the mobile device because it's much quicker than the online betting process through a computer. So here we go. Let's take a look at some international basketball games. For those of you who are familiar with what we do, we're looking for first half bets or Q3 bets. We're not interested in Q1. There isn't enough statistical data from which to gain any kind of a probable edge over the sports book, so we don't bother with that. Q4, we don't get very many Q4 opportunities because the sports books tend to change their algorithms in Q4 in comparison with what they run during Qs 1, 2, and 3, which are standard form. It's just what we do. It's part of the statistical anomalies that we look for in generating our signals and finding an edge over the sportsbook. If you follow us for any length of time, you'll catch on as we go. But in terms of what you have to do, there's nothing complicated going on here. As I say, I'm looking for the edge. I find the edge. I point out the bet with plenty of time, and when I point it out, the number that I point out is not the actual line that the sports book is giving. We're waiting for that line to come into play, and when it does, you click and hopefully you get in the trade. We don't always get in. You've got anywhere between a 1 to 10 second window on average to get into these plays. Many times it's not possible to get into them because there's a stoppage in play. A quick basket is scored. The line is pulled. The line changes. A foul occurs. A whole bunch of the typical basketball-like situations that occur, which affect the sportsbook's line. They're running 5 seconds ahead of any television broadcast that you might be watching. They've always got the edge. And so the idea behind this algorithm, which was 3 years in the making, is for us to even things up and find situations where we have the edge. And once we have the edge, we take that bet. So I'm looking, and I'll point out to you if I happen to see anything of interest. We'll call that game up. We'll pull it up on screen. We'll analyze it, and we'll see if we can find an edge. When there's silence, just go about your business. I'm going about mine, and hopefully we'll find something together today here to get a quick hit, just to demonstrate what it is we do and how it is we do it. So I've briefly I've gone through all of the games that are either in Q2 or Q3 right now. There really isn't anything at this very second to focus on. I can point out some of the reasons why we might wish to stay away from a game. A lot of the European countries have their cup play going on today. A lot of these better teams play they play cup play, like over here, this Lithuania Cup. There's Holland Cup, Coupe de France. There's the Holland Cup there. There'll be some Coupe de France games on, no doubt. Austria Cup, as we see, Croatia Cup. So all these games are getting underway. A lot of these better teams play in either Eurobasket or some Division One league in Europe, and they'll play one or two games a week on average in that particular league. And then they also have their own, within their own country, they have their league play, and then they have cup play as well, which is kind of like soccer, where they relegate you into different divisions if you don't finish in a certain place amongst all the teams. All of that to say is you'll see these same teams over and over again, but the style of play, the pace of play changes dramatically depending on if they're playing, for example, Eurobasket versus their own league within their country, or if they're playing cup play. So it varies quite dramatically, and so it's not enough just to know the teams and to say, oh, I know these guys, they score a lot, and then just to go with that. It doesn't work that way at all, which is why it's really important to have some statistical data to back up what it is you're doing, and not just historic data, because it's historic. It doesn't mean anything in terms of what's going on today live during a game. And so that's why our algorithm is very useful in that it provides live updated data from which to determine whether or not we have an edge at any given point in time. Anyway, lots of talking from me because there isn't we don't have a game yet, but I'm scanning, and as soon as I've got something that's worthwhile looking at, we're going to look at it together. Got one game right now that's coming up, and I'll tell you why it's not going to yield a signal that we can work with. If I can pull up the game here, that's this one right here. This Poland League Two game. So this would be a first half bet. So we'd be looking at over 99.5. And the reason we're not interested in this bet is mostly because of the lopsided score, 52-33. In a lot of these international games, pace of play and style of play differs from, for example, NBA play or NCAA play, or in some instances it mirrors it. But what I'm trying to say here is that it's not unusual for the team with such a large lead to go into the half basically slowing down the pace of play in that last minute, and either holding the ball for a good possession and a good shot, or doing that for the last few possessions because they built up such a good lead in the game. So that happens in Q2, and so we've got to be leery about that. Conversely, in our experience, and we've got the statistical data to back it up, that doesn't happen as often, for example, in Q3, where it's just at the end of Q3, it'll be just a continuation of the second half of the game, and that's where you're putting the hammer down, and if you've got that lead, you're really trying to bury that opponent and ensure that there is no game in the fourth quarter. So it's unlikely, or at least it occurs much less frequently, that a team with such a big lead heading towards the end of the third quarter would slow play down dramatically so as to affect the statistical probability of getting that over. So all that just to say that that's the reason why we didn't take this one. If you do follow what we do, there's a lot of silence. I try to fill the silence with some conversation. The point about what it is we do is that it's very disciplined, it's very methodical, and it's pretty successful. You've got to be patient and wait for that right game. And when you've got the game, you've got to wait for the signal. And when you have the signal, you have to wait for that line to come into play. And when it comes into play, you've got to have perfect execution when you click and enter into that trade. So it's basically a four-part process. If you've followed our Twitter today, you'll see that we took a couple of bets here earlier this morning. They were both successful, which is great. It's great because they won, but it's also great because it also tests the algorithm against what the sportsbook is doing on any given day. Sportsbooks vary their own internal algorithms all the time. Sometimes focusing on the under, sometimes focusing on the over. In either case, what they're trying to do is draw you in, the bettor and myself and anybody else who does this. They're trying to draw you into taking what appears to be the obvious line. As we know, the favorites win most of the time. The betting public selects the favorites most of the time, yet the betting public loses most of the times, and 95% of all bettors blow up their accounts. So if everybody's doing what everybody is supposed to do, and the sportsbook wants you to do that, and yet you're not winning, you have to ask yourself, what's wrong? What am I doing wrong? What's wrong with the system? And so on. And so that's what this algorithm tries to correct. It tries to give you and I and anybody watching, we're hoping to establish a huge viewer and success follower base, subscriber base. Over the course of time, we want to show you that we bring a very useful service and value added to those who have the patience to practice what it is we're teaching here. So all the Germany Bundesliga games, there are four of them going on at the present. Two of them are about to end, so they're off the table. But there are two now that are midway through Q1. So those will be establishing statistics and indicators within our algorithm, and so those will develop. And as we get into Q2, I suspect that we'll likely have an opportunity that'll come from one of those, either one of those two games. We've got a Czech Republic game where they've just gone into halftime, so there'll be a break there. But then we'll have Q3, so that'll be a good game to follow. Same thing. The Holland Cup game is now Holland Cup games going into Q4. Q4. We don't generate very many signals in Q4 for the reasons that I mentioned earlier in this broadcast. So that's not likely to be a candidate. A bunch of Italy regional U20 games. There always are. If you've listened to any of our broadcasts, you'll know what the issues are in respect of those particular games. They are a special breed of games in and of themselves. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you really should educate yourself before you place one of these bets, because interesting things go on with different games depending on the league. Croatia Cup game is will be into Q2 soon. Austria Cup game is in Q2. I'll show you that one. Yeah, so this particular game right here. Again, the issue with that game is the large disparity in the score, particularly that first quarter where it was 28-12. Putting up 28 is a huge number in international basketball. Doesn't happen all the time. In fact, probably not going to see it again within this game by the same team. It's quite unusual. But what it has created is quite a gap in the score, and again, it could lead to different pace of play in the last couple minutes of the half, which could affect our algorithm in terms of likelihood of success. We're counting on those last 2, 3, 4 minutes for our edge to solidify and to bring that game home. And if all of a sudden things change dramatically in terms of pace of play, style of play, strategy, we'll take an edge and turn it into a loss pretty quickly if we aren't aware of what the likelihood is going to be in terms of those factors that I just pointed out. So that goes into the strategy as well. So just trying to provide some insight here in terms of what it is we do and how it is we do it. So patience here this morning, and we'll come up with one. As we wait, just want to point out to everyone that we don't need a bunch of these over the course of a day to be successful long term. It's not quantity, of course. It's the quality over the quantity that will dictate our profitability long term. We've utilized the algorithm to place a great number of bets to see if it was better to wager many more times, and then we did every variation in between to a super tight algorithmic formula whereby little to no signals are generated, to see what strategy might work best. And we've done this statistically over the past 3 years, and we've back tested our results whenever possible, and we've found that the sweet spot is somewhere closer to the fewest amount of bets possible generated in a day. That's where the algorithm is optimized. So basically, maybe I'm not explaining myself well. What I'm trying to say is whereas let's say we tested it to generate, let's say just say give a random number of 10 bets. We tried that, and then we tried to put it so the formula is super tight so it only generates one bet. We tried that. We tried every combination in between. And essentially what I'm saying is that when we've got given a typical number of international basketball games in a day of 20, 25 games that we'll look at during the window that we stream, if we can get 2 to 3 bets during that time, we found that to be optimal. We frequently go 1-0, 2-0, 2-1. We do that a lot. 1-1 happens as well. That's what can you do? No money made there, but it's infrequent for us to go, for example, 0-2, 0-3. Although our second broadcast, as a matter of fact, was one such day, but it does happen, and we try to steer clear of any drama, of any concerns in a game, and if we're lucky, we find that edge. So here's a game here that just came up. It's one of those Italian regional U20 games, and it's got a lopsided score. No doubt in terms of the outcome, and we're looking at a number of 39.5. We're looking at over 39.5, and because of the lopsided score, I would urge you not to wager any more than a half a unit, whatever your typical unit is on a play. This is a half a unit, and this is over 39.5 is what you're looking for here. We're at 40.5. There's a pretty good chance this number will come up. So over 39.5 is what we're looking for in this particular game here. Q3 over 39.5. The Milano versus Baskettown game over 39.5. So we're stuck at 40.5. The line has been removed. Scoreboard showing a timeout. Sportsbook's always going to be ahead until the sportsbook has established that it's ahead, that it is statistically ahead of anything else we can possibly do, that line won't come live again. There are 37 seconds left before the line disappears altogether. The anomaly with this game, it's not often that you're going to find the perfect game where everything you could possibly look at is statistically on your side. This game has a lot going for it, but it has one major flaw. Let's look for 39.5 here, and that's the score, which is why it's a half unit play only, half unit, over 39.5. So there's over 39.5. I don't know if you have it. I don't have it. I wasn't able to get it. Trying again. Okay, I have it. I have over 39.5. We're in at the $2, which is a great bet. It's a great bet. It's a half a unit only, and it pays exactly $2. What I got it at, it was 183, and then it went up and such. We have a statistical edge. It's just a question of whether or not they continue to score at that same pace. Again, here the anomaly is the score. Obviously, Milano doesn't have the same incentive as Baskettown does to push the ball up the floor. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I like it though. I like it on a half unit play. And it was an algorithm signal, and we did call it out. And hopefully, we're able to bring this one home. Again, the line we're looking for is over 39.5 in this third quarter. So we'll see if we can get it. Always difficult to know how you're doing, and we'll stay. And the reason we'll stay with this game and not move on is because of risk and money management issues, which should be first and foremost on your mind at all times. We're not interested in taking any more than one game at a time. We're also not interested in adding to a position. We'll live with our call, one way or the other. Hopefully, it's a winner for us. But if it's not, we don't want to be in a situation where we chased a loser and added to that loss, and we don't want to get into another position based on a presumption that we're either going to win or lose an existing bet, because that also affects trader psychology. None of those things are good for long-term profitability. So we follow this one to the end. We hope we expect the very best, and we'll move on to another game afterwards. Again, I want to point out that this particular game had absolutely everything we were looking for in it. It's a textbook in terms of candidate for our algorithmic oversignal here, which it did generate, but it was a half unit play because there was one major statistical flaw, statistical anomaly with this particular game, and that was the score. It's a lopsided score, and that tends to have a bearing on pace of play in the last minute or two, and that can be the difference between a winner and a loser, and seeing your statistical edge evaporate and turn into a loser. So I can see that 40 points were scored. We had over 39 and a half. I see that it even dropped down to 38 and a half at some point in the game. We don't care about that, of course. We're in at 39 and a half. That's the signal, we call it. And so we see that the quarter's over. 40 points were scored. Over 39 and a half is a winner. I want to point out two things. Number one, with 39 seconds to go, we only needed 1 point. I don't care who you are, where you are, what kind of basketball you're playing, watching. With 39 seconds to go, and you need a point for your over to cash, you have to admit you have a huge statistical advantage. I would venture to say that 7 times, possibly 8 times out of 10, that point will be scored, and you're going to be a winner. So there's an undeniable statistical edge over the sportsbook. Conversely, you'll also notice that we only did score 40 points. In those last 39 seconds, we only scored the 1 point. I would argue that, and I'm not watching this game live. I'm not. I don't know if anybody is, but I'm not watching it live. I have no interest in watching the game live. All that's going to do is affect my trading psychology. I'm just interested in the stats. That's all I care about. All I know is that this game is not close enough to warrant both teams running up and down the floor in that last minute of the third quarter like rabbits and trying to score as many points as they possibly can. So it makes perfect sense that in those last 39 seconds, we barely got that point scored. And that's why this particular game was only a half unit. Had the score been close, that would have been a full unit play without a doubt. We just couldn't afford to go a full unit here because of that statistical anomaly. Anyway, so that's our live stream for today. A quick 1-0. Just wanted to show everyone how it's done, and looking forward to having some feedback on Twitter, and hopefully getting some viewers and some subscribers and some people who want to follow our streams live and make some money. And when we do develop that viewership and that subscribership, we will stream consistently for longer sessions, and people will get to see exactly what it is we do, how it is we do it, and why following us can be profitable to you in the long term if you've got discipline, if you've got perfect execution, and if you can manage your risk and money management skills. If you can have those in place and not blow up, not revenge, not chase, not all those bad things. If you can avoid those, we can make you some money, and we'll have some fun doing it. Again, we're Signals. You can reach us by email or on Twitter, which is where we predominantly are, as are most services of this type. And again, thank you for watching our stream, and we'll see you next time.